Today's subject is one that has fascinated and frightened people for thousands of years: comets. We'll look at what they actually are, why they behave so dramatically, and what they can tell us about the history of the solar system. So let's begin with the basic nature of a comet. Despite their spectacular appearance in the sky, comets are surprisingly small and humble objects. A comet is essentially a mixture of ice and dust, sometimes described as a dirty snowball. That's a helpful image, a chunk of frozen material, only a few kilometers across, with dust and rocky particles mixed into the ice. Nothing about that lump, on its own, suggests the glowing spectacle we associate with comets. Now, where do comets come from, and where do they spend their time? The answer is, very far away, and most of the time, doing very little. The great majority of comets spend almost all of their existence in the cold, dark, outer reaches of the solar system, immensely far from the sun. Out there, a comet is simply a frozen lump, drifting in deep cold. It's only on the rare occasions when a comet's orbit brings it close to the sun that things become interesting. And here's the key to the whole phenomenon. As a comet approaches the sun, it heats up, and the ice, instead of melting into liquid, turns directly into gas. This gas, together with freed dust, streams away from the comet and forms an enormous glowing tail, which can stretch for millions of kilometers and is what makes comets visible to us. So the tail is not a permanent feature, it's created fresh each time the comet nears the sun, and it disappears again as the comet moves back into the cold. There's a lovely detail here that surprises many people. You might assume a comet's tail trails out behind it, like the tail of a running animal. But it doesn't. The tail is pushed outward by the sun, which means it always points away from the sun, regardless of which way the comet is actually moving. So as a comet swings around the sun and heads back out, its tail goes ahead of it, leading the way. The direction of travel doesn't determine the tail, the sun does. Historically, comets caused great alarm. Because they appeared suddenly and unpredictably, breaking the orderly pattern of the night sky, many cultures regarded a comet as a bad omen, a warning of disaster, the death of a king, war, or plague. It's easy to understand the fear. In a sky that otherwise behaved with perfect regularity, here was a strange, glowing intruder that came from nowhere. But for modern science, comets are valuable precisely because they are so ancient and unchanged. Because they've spent billions of years frozen in the deep cold, far from the sun's heat, they've preserved the original material from the very birth of the solar system. Studying a comet is therefore a bit like opening a time capsule. It gives us a sample of the primitive ingredients from which the planets, and ultimately we ourselves, were made. So these once feared objects have become, for scientists, some of the most precious messengers we have from the distant past.